At the very basis of all digital technologies, you'll find data. Data is the thing that computers are very good at manipulating. They're very good at manipulating it in binary, as you'll see in this screen here. We're going to look at data that's a little bit different to that. We're going to look at data which is in a form that we understand, and the computer will convert that so that we can then manipulate it. It'll convert it into binary. We don't need to worry about that for the moment, though. We can abstract to look at a higher level. In the Australian curriculum, Digital Technologies, there are a number of references to data because it's so important. Right the way from F to 2 up to 9 to 10. And you can see that we go from a very simple collect, access and present different types of data right the way through to something which is quite complex, such as developing techniques, including quantitative and qualitative data. This video is going to work more along the lines of 5 to 6 and 7 to 8 because we're looking at simple manipulation of data using a spreadsheet. Now, when you first say data to students, not terribly excited, so we need a bit of a hook to make them excited so that we can give them the tools that they will need to use to solve problems of their own down the track. And the thing that I found most useful is Big Mac. And Big Mac data, you'll see that I've searched for there. Big Macs are sold through most countries in the world, and they have a certain price. And The Economist magazine, based out of London, decided that this might be a worthwhile thing to use so that economies can be compared. How much does a Big Mac cost you in each of these different countries? So we're not going to use it for that. We're going to use it just to interest kids in how much does it cost to buy a common takeaway snack or a big snack in different parts of the world. So we're going to go here. Now, the reason I've chosen this one rather than other stuff down here, here's some more information about the Big Mac Index if you're interested in having a look at it, and a bunch of different websites that you can go to there. I'm going to go here, The Economist. I'm going to go because it's on github.com, and I know that GitHub is a repository for data and the software that analyzes those data. So when we go here, we can see what information is available in the Big Mac Index. And there's a lot of information here, including some very technical stuff. We'll go down to the README and find out what it's all about. It tells us where the data has come from, which is helpful. It also tells us how we can get the data. There's a variety of different formats here. That CSV refers to comma-separated values. So all of the values, like the country and how much it costs, are separated with a comma. We're not going to use that in this instance. We'll use something a little bit simpler, as you'll see in a minute. And then down here it tells us what information we've got available to us in those data. When the price was measured, the International Standards Organization 3-character code for the country. So in Australia that would be AUS. For the currency that would be AUD. The name of the country would be Australia. How much it costs in the local currency. But because these fluctuate from between one country and another, it's very difficult to take a US dollar and compare that to an Australian dollar because they're different. They're measured differently against one another. So we're going to take everything in the price of a Big Mac in dollars, and in this particular instance that means US dollars, not Australian dollars. So that gives us some idea of the data that's available to us. Up the top here we'll see that there is a link to the latest release, and if we go to the latest release we can see the different ways in which we can download this. This is a January 2020, so it's reasonably current at the time of this recording. And here we've got it in Excel format, so we don't need to worry about all these other formats just for the moment. They have their benefit, but at the moment we're just going to go with this. So if we click on that, we can download it and open it up within Excel. Now what you're going to look at is something like this, where we've got the country, the code for its currency, how much it costs locally, and then over here is what the dollar price is. And these are the things that we need. We don't really need anything else to do this first part of the exercise. You'll also see down the bottom here there's a whole bunch of different measurement times and information from a whole heap of different materials. So I'm going to delete a lot of these things that we don't need simply by clicking on them and saying, well, I don't need that, and I don't need that, and I don't need that. Right click and delete, and I'm going to do the same sort of thing for all of this stuff down the bottom. I'm going to delete all the things except for the 2020 information that we have. Go and grab all those and delete. And the only other thing that we need is get rid of the dollar PPP, whatever that is, and all the rest of the stuff here. We don't need that, so I'm going to delete that as well. And what we're left with is the cost and the country. Now the dollar price here is given in a ridiculous precision, so I'm going to take that down to here, and I'm going to make that a little bit smaller in terms of numbers. So I'm really only interested in the dollars and cents, so I'm going to take that down to there. Now once that's done, I'm going to save this out, and I'll save it out, or save as, because I might want to come back to that original at some stage later on. So I'm going to call this Big Mac temp or something or other. Temp will do. Big Mac temp. How's that? And save that. I'm going to put this on my desktop because I only need to use it very briefly to do what I want to do next. Do, however, want to come back to it, so we might put it in a more secure location at some stage later. So there we are. We know the country and we know the dollar price. So we might want to look down here and say in India it's only $2.65 US, whereas in Australia it's $4.45 US. It'd be much, much better if we went to India to get fed. It's much cheaper. But as you're probably aware, there's a number of other factors that we need to take into account, not least of which is whether or not the kids know where Costa Rica is, or the Czech Republic, or Azerbaijan, for argument's sake. Where the hell are these things? So what we might do is have a look at these data in a slightly different way. Let's visualize these data in a slightly different way. So if you've got a Google account, you can go and create one. If you don't, you can create one. If you have one, you can go to mymaps.google.com. And I use this frequently, as you can see, to map out various occurrences. So I'm going to create a new map, and that new map will come up as untitled, and on that map we will see all of the major places in the world laid out as a sort of a traditional Google map. We can zoom in on that, we can zoom out, and we can see the rest of the places around the world. The really interesting thing is that Google gives us the opportunity to place our data in its relevant geographical location. So over here you can say add places by drawing or by importing data. We're going to import data. The data that we're going to import is going to be an XLS file. We're going to select it from our device, or we could drag and drop, but I'll just select it from our device, and there it is there. There's our Big Mac temp. I'll choose that and open it up. And you remember we had two columns in this. One was the name of the country and the other was the dollar price. So we want to locate them with the country and we want to label it with the dollar price. So that will now go and work out where everything is and show us what it costs to buy a Big Mac in a number of different places, and each of these is now labelled with a little traditional map marker. If we click on them, we see how much it costs in Australia, and we see the lat long that they're using for that country. And we'll see here in New Zealand that it's $4.29. So the kids can explore this a little bit and see where things are, but before we move on, let's have a look at this error message which says that 2 rows couldn't be shown on the map. Fix the errors that are highlighted red in the data table. Well, I don't know what those are, so let's open the data table. Scroll up, and here are the 2. One is the Euro area. So the Big Mac index had a Euro area entry into it. Now, if you look at the map, you'll find that the map has got quite a large number of things entered into Europe, and if we move into there, we can see France and we can see Romania, etc., etc. So the Euro area is all of this. We probably don't really need that. So what I'm going to do is to delete that. Delete that row. And this one here says Jordan. Well, that's interesting. Jordan sits around here. No, hold on, where it is, around here. But it doesn't know where Jordan is, which is interesting. So I wonder why. This is the United Arab Emirates, that's fine. Argentina, Australia, Azerbaijan. I wonder why Jordan is not being shown. Well, that threw me a little bit at first, so I did a Google search for Jordan and found out that the official name for Jordan is the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan. After 1946, it became an independent state. So I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to go back to my map and say, well, don't worry about Jordan. Let's call it the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan, and as soon as we click out of there, it says, right, got it, no worries. Now, this is a really interesting thing to talk about in terms of, we know what Jordan is. It's a country and it sits around there somewhere. But this is using a computer which is essentially looking up a table and saying, what's the latitude and longitude for this country? And its official name is the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan. So if we just call it Jordan, we may as well have called it hamburger meat. It doesn't mean anything. It's called the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan. And in the same way, if we go down to the bottom here, the United States is called the United States. It's not called America, for a variety of reasons. So now we've fixed up our errors. We can go back, and the students put that away, and the students can now go and have a look at what the price of a Big Mac is in all of these different areas and get an idea of where the countries are. There's not much in the way of price of Big Mac in Africa. It might make an interesting discussion point as well. The next one of this series we'll look at, okay, we know that it costs $3.47 in Saudi Arabia. We know it costs, whatever that was, it's being hidden there, $2.64 in Egypt. But how long does it take you to earn $2.54 in Egypt? I wonder if that's more or less than in Australia. That's what we'll deal with next.